When a wealthy white woman spotted a 10-year-old black girl in first class, she immediately called 911, convinced the child was a fraud. But 5 minutes later, as handcuffs clicked shut, it wasn't on the person she expected. What happened next shocked millions worldwide. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching, also like and subscribe for more stories. The airplane hummed quietly as passengers settled into their seats for the 5-hour flight from New York to Los Angeles. In first class, 10-year-old Maya Johnson sat by the window, her small hands pressed against the glass as she watched the ground crew prepare for takeoff. Her braided hair was decorated with colorful beads that caught the cabin light, and she wore a neat blue dress with white sneakers. Maya was traveling alone for the first time. Her grandmother had just passed away in New York, and now she was flying back to Los Angeles to live with her uncle Marcus, who was a successful doctor. The airline staff had been kind to her, making sure she was comfortable and explaining that someone would help her during the flight. 2 rows behind Maya sat Patricia Williams, a 45-year-old real estate agent from Beverly Hills. Patricia had perfectly styled blonde hair, expensive jewelry, and the kind of attitude that came from always getting her way. She looked around first class with satisfaction. This was where she belonged, not like those people in economy class. When Patricia noticed Maya, her face immediately twisted with disgust. She couldn't understand how that kind of child could afford a first-class seat. In her narrow mind, she assumed Maya must be in the wrong place or had somehow gotten the seat through some mistake or charity. Patricia called over a flight attendant, a young woman named Sarah with kind eyes and a professional smile. "Excuse me," Patricia said in a voice loud enough for other passengers to hear. "I think there's been a mistake. That child doesn't belong in first class. She's probably lost or in the wrong seat." Sarah looked confused. "Ma'am, I can check, but all our first-class passengers are properly seated according to their tickets." "Well, check again," Patricia demanded. "It's obvious she doesn't belong here. Look at her. This is first class, not some charity program." Maya heard every word. Her young heart began to race and tears started forming in her eyes. She had been through so much pain losing her grandmother, and now this stranger was being mean to her for no reason. She looked down at her ticket, checking again to make sure she was in the right place. Seat 2A, that's exactly where she was sitting. Sarah walked over to Maya with a gentle smile. "Hi sweetie, can I see your ticket please?" Maya handed over her boarding pass with shaking hands. Sarah looked at it carefully and then smiled reassuringly. "You're exactly where you should be, honey. This is your seat." But Patricia wasn't finished. She stood up and walked closer, speaking even louder now. "I don't care what that ticket says. She obviously doesn't belong here. Her family probably can't even afford economy class, let alone first class. I paid good money for my seat and I shouldn't have to sit near people like that." Other passengers began to stare. An elderly businessman named Robert looked uncomfortable. A young mother named Jennifer felt her heart break watching Maya's tears. A college student named David pulled out his phone, sensing something terrible was about to happen. Maya finally spoke up, her voice small but brave. "My uncle bought me this ticket. My grandma died and I'm going to live with him now." Patricia rolled her eyes dramatically. "Oh please, what a convenient story. I'm calling security. There's no way this child legitimately has a first-class ticket." Despite Sarah's repeated explanations that Maya's ticket was valid, Patricia became more aggressive. She demanded to speak to the captain, threatened to report the airline, and created such a scene that other passengers became increasingly uncomfortable. Finally, Patricia pulled out her phone and dialed 911. "I need police at gate 15A immediately," she said loudly. "There's a suspicious child in first class who doesn't belong here. She's probably traveling with fake documents or stolen tickets." Maya burst into tears. The weight of losing her grandmother, being alone, and now being attacked by this cruel woman was too much for her 10-year-old heart to bear. "Please don't call the police on me," Maya sobbed. "I didn't do anything wrong. I just want to go to my uncle." Jennifer, the young mother, couldn't stay quiet anymore. She unbuckled her seatbelt and moved to sit next to Maya. "Hey sweetheart, you're okay," Jennifer said softly, putting her arm around Maya. "You didn't do anything wrong." Then Jennifer looked directly at Patricia with fire in her eyes. "What is wrong with you? She's a child who just lost her grandmother. How dare you treat her like this?" Robert, the elderly businessman, also stood up. "This is absolutely disgusting behavior. That little girl has every right to be here." David continued recording on his phone, knowing this story needed to be told. "Ma'am," Captain Wilson said to Patricia in a stern, authoritative voice that commanded immediate attention. I am the captain of this aircraft, and I am personally responsible for the safety and well-being of every passenger on board. What you are doing constitutes harassment and it stops right now. If you continue this behavior, I will have you removed from this aircraft and banned from flying with our airline. But Patricia was too consumed by her racist delusions and sense of entitlement to listen to reason, even from the captain. She was convinced that she was the victim in this situation and that everyone else was wrong. "Captain, I am a paying first-class passenger and I have rights," Patricia declared indignantly. "I should not be forced to sit next to suspicious individuals who clearly obtain their seats through fraudulent means. I'm calling the authorities and they will sort this out properly." 25 minutes after Patricia's initial complaint, 2 airport police officers boarded the plane through the jet bridge. Officer Luis Martinez, a 15-year veteran of airport security, and Officer Sarah Thompson, who had been dealing with airplane disputes for 8 years, both looked tired and somewhat annoyed. They dealt with passenger complaints regularly, but most turned out to be minor issues blown out of proportion by stressed or entitled travelers. Patricia immediately rushed toward the officers with a triumphant, self-satisfied smile, confident that she was about to be vindicated and that Maya would be humiliated and arrested. "Officers, thank goodness you're finally here," Patricia said dramatically, pointing accusingly at Maya. "That child over there is clearly traveling with fraudulent documents. She absolutely does not belong in first class, and I suspect she's using stolen identification or forged tickets. This is obviously some kind of elaborate scam or security threat that needs to be investigated immediately." The officers exchanged glances, already sensing that this situation might not be what it appeared to be. Officer Martinez had seen plenty of false accusations over the years, and something about Patricia's aggressive demeanor and the way the other passengers were glaring at her raised red flags. Officer Thompson approached Maya gently, noting how other passengers had protectively gathered around the child and how distressed she appeared. "Hi there, sweetheart. What's your name?" "Maya Johnson," she whispered through her tears, her voice barely audible due to her emotional exhaustion. "Can you show me your ticket and ID, Maya?" With trembling hands, Maya produced her boarding pass and the special identification card for unaccompanied minors that the airline had given her. Officer Thompson examined the documents carefully. Everything was legitimate and in order. "Ma'am," Officer Thompson said to Patricia, "this child's documents are completely valid. Her ticket is real, and she's properly registered as an unaccompanied minor." But Patricia wasn't backing down. "That's impossible. Look at her. There's no way her family can afford first class. She's probably using someone else's identity." Officer Martinez was getting irritated. "Ma'am, we verified her documents. They're genuine." "Then run a background check," Patricia demanded. "I bet her family has a criminal record. People like them always do." The racist nature of Patricia's comments was now obvious to everyone. Passengers began speaking up. "This is disgusting," said Robert. "You're harassing a child because of her race." "I'm recording this whole thing," said David. "The world needs to see what kind of person you are." "That little girl is more dignified than you'll ever be," added Jennifer. But Patricia was too consumed by her hatred to stop. "I want her removed from this plane. I refuse to fly with suspicious people." Officer Martinez had heard enough. "Ma'am, the only person acting suspiciously here is you. You've made false accusations, harassed a minor, and wasted police resources." Just then, Officer Thompson's radio crackled. He stepped aside to take a call, and his expression changed completely. "Patricia Williams?" he asked. "Yes, that's me," Patricia replied, expecting vindication. "We just ran your information through our system. You have an outstanding warrant for tax evasion. You owe the IRS over $200,000 in unpaid taxes." Patricia's face went white. That's a mistake." "No mistake, ma'am. We need you to come with us." The airplane fell silent except for Maya's sniffles. Patricia, who had spent 30 minutes trying to get Maya arrested, was now being handcuffed herself. "This is ridiculous," Patricia shouted as the officers led her away. "I'm a respectable businesswoman." "A respectable businesswoman who cheats on her taxes and harasses children," Officer Martinez replied coldly. As Patricia was removed from the plane, the other passengers began to applaud. Maya looked up in confusion, not understanding why people were clapping. Jennifer explained gently, "They're not clapping because someone got arrested, honey. They're showing you that they support you and think you're brave." Sarah, the flight attendant, knelt down next to Maya. "I'm so sorry you went through that, sweetheart. Would you like to move to a different seat?" Maya shook her head. "No, this is my seat. My uncle paid for it." The captain's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the delay. We'll be taking off shortly. I want to personally apologize to our young passenger Maya for the unacceptable treatment she received. This airline has zero tolerance for discrimination." As the plane finally took off, something beautiful happened. Robert, the elderly businessman, came over to Maya with a small gift, a book about brave children throughout history. "I thought you might like this," he said kindly. "You showed incredible courage today." Jennifer's daughter, who was about Maya's age, asked if Maya wanted to color with her. Soon Maya was smiling and making friends. David uploaded his video to social media during the flight. Within hours, it had been viewed millions of times. People were outraged by Patricia's behavior and touched by Maya's dignity. The hashtag Justice for Maya began trending worldwide. Thousands of people shared messages of support for Maya and condemnation of Patricia's racism. Meanwhile, Patricia was sitting in a jail cell, charged with filing false police reports, harassment and tax evasion. Her real estate license was suspended, and her clients began canceling their contracts with her. When the plane landed in Los Angeles, Maya's uncle Marcus was waiting at the gate. He was a tall, distinguished man in a doctor's coat. He had come straight from the hospital when he heard what happened. "Uncle Marcus." Maya ran into his arms, finally feeling safe. "I'm so proud of how brave you were, Maya," he said, tears in his eyes. "And I'm sorry you had to experience such cruelty." Sarah, the flight attendant, approached them. "Dr. Johnson? I'm Sarah. I wanted you to know that your niece conducted herself with incredible dignity today. She never lost her temper or said anything unkind, even when that woman was being terrible to her." Uncle Marcus hugged Maya tighter. "That sounds like my Maya. She gets her strength from her grandmother." A news reporter who had heard about the viral video approached them carefully. "Dr. Johnson, would you be willing to share your thoughts about what happened today?" Uncle Marcus looked down at Maya, who nodded. "My niece lost her grandmother last week," he said. "She's 10 years old, traveling alone for the first time, dealing with grief, and some woman decided to attack her because of the color of her skin. But Maya handled it with more grace than many adults would." "What do you think should happen to Patricia Williams?" the reporter asked. Maya spoke up softly. "I think she needs to learn that being mean to people because they look different is wrong. Maybe she needs to spend time with different kinds of people so she won't be scared of them anymore." Even after everything Patricia had put her through, Maya was showing compassion. The reporter was amazed by her maturity. Over the following days, the story continued to spread. The airline gave Maya and her uncle free flights for life and made a large donation to an anti-racism education program in Maya's grandmother's name. Patricia Williams faced serious consequences. She lost her business, her reputation, and spent 6 months in jail for tax evasion. When she was released, she had to perform 200 hours of community service at a multicultural community center. At first, Patricia was angry and resentful. But as she worked with children and families from different backgrounds, something began to change in her heart. She met kids like Maya who were smart, kind, and dealing with real challenges. She began to realize how wrong and harmful her thinking had been. 1 year later, Patricia did something that surprised everyone. She wrote a public letter of apology to Maya and donated $50,000 to the scholarship fund that had been created in Maya's grandmother's name. Maya, now 11 and thriving in school, read the letter with her uncle. "Do you forgive her?" Uncle Marcus asked. Maya thought carefully. "I think people can change if they really want to. If she's really sorry and tries to be better, then yes, I forgive her." The story of Maya and Patricia became a teaching tool in schools around the country. It showed children how discrimination hurts people, but also how dignity, courage, and forgiveness can triumph over hatred. Maya grew up to become a civil rights lawyer, inspired by her experience on that airplane. She never forgot the kindness of the passengers who stood up for her, and she dedicated her life to protecting other children from discrimination. Patricia Williams eventually became a volunteer with organizations fighting racism. She spent the rest of her life trying to make up for the harm she had caused, using her story as an example of how prejudice can destroy lives, including your own. Years later, when Maya was giving a speech at a civil rights conference, she said something that moved the entire audience to tears. "That day on the airplane, I learned that hate is loud but love is louder. One woman tried to make me feel small because of my race, but dozens of people stood up to show me that goodness exists in the world. The woman who called the police on me thought she was better than me, but she ended up in handcuffs while I flew home to my family's love. I also learned that the strongest response to hate isn't more hate. It's dignity, courage, and the belief that people can change." We can't control how others treat us, but we can control how we respond. And when we respond with grace, we not only protect our own hearts, but we give others the chance to see their mistakes and become better people. Maya's story reminds us that discrimination hurts everyone involved. Patricia Williams thought her prejudice made her superior, but it actually destroyed her life and revealed her own moral poverty. Maya, the 10-year-old girl she tried to humiliate, showed more character and wisdom than a grown woman. The airplane incident lasted only 30 minutes, but its effects rippled through countless lives. Maya's courage inspired millions of people to stand up against discrimination. Patricia's downfall showed the world that racism has consequences. And the passengers who supported Maya proved that good people will always outnumber the bad ones. In the end, love truly is louder than hate, and dignity will always triumph over discrimination.